Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, which are wonderful. They are 1-hour sessions that take place over the phone. We start with a prayer blessing that opens sacred space, and then we have conversation designed to help you connect with your divine guidance and the angels. And if you're interested in scheduling a session, you can send me an email or visit me at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. I also offer a wide variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. You can sign up for my daily inspiration email blast, and I'll send you an inspiring email every weekday, and all of that you can find at my website. I'm also fairly active on my Facebook page of the same name, Illuminating Souls. So lots of ways we can connect. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a soothing, calming, loving space where you can rest and relax and perhaps even fall asleep. So as most of you know, I listen to a sleep podcast every night. I have a variety of podcasts that I choose from, including this one. And I have a lovely and wonderful waking life. And I also love bedtime. There's something that is so sweet and luxurious about crawling into bed at the end of the day. And so I am someone who loves bedtime. And so I bring my joy of bedtime and sleep to this broadcast for you. At the moment here in the Bay Area where we live, it is cool. And so we get to have extra blankets on the bed. And it is one of my favorite times of year for sleeping because there is something so delicious about curling up under the covers at the end of a day, knowing that you have an opportunity to rest. I don't know why that always makes me so happy. And so I infuse this goodness, this sweetness of spirit into this broadcast for you as well. And so if you are using this to help go to sleep, what I recommend is snuggling on up and curling on into your bed or wherever it is that you sleep, pulling up your blankets just so. And I use earbuds. They don't bother me when I sleep, but however it's best for you to listen to the podcast. What I find helpful is I turn the volume down lower than I would if I was listening to an audiobook, because I'm not trying too hard to pay attention. I want to have to reach a bit for the conversation, and then I find it makes it so easy to drift off to sleep. So my hope is that this will work for you as well. And if you are listening during the daytime when you're awake, you have my blessing for that too. The angel love still flows through to you. I know many of you listen during your waking hours, and I'm glad to keep you company with whatever you are doing in this moment. So as I record this, it is early morning. That's my favorite time of day to record these episodes for you because the world is quiet. And I am quiet as well. I haven't completely become aware of the waking world yet. And I'm underneath the blanket fort. And those of you who listen know I have this big, cozy Sherpa blanket that I throw over my monitor and my head, and I make a blanket fort because it helps to dampen the sound. But it also makes for this really cozy space. And so the energy right now is so calm and soothing. The sweetest light is flowing through for you right now. The angels are bringing forward love for you. And they are meeting you right where you are. So I'm going to call the angels in now. They're already here, but I love the ritual of inviting them forward so that you know they are here as well. So I invite you to close your eyes. Unless you're driving a car, then please keep them open. And we will take some nice deep breaths in as we call ourselves forward into the heart of God. And beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. I ask that you bring forward waves of healing, of love, of compassion, and of light and service to each of our beloveds who are listening to this message. Angels, I ask that you bring forward a lightness of spirit, helping each one of us gain altitude on whatever it is that we are navigating in our lives. That I know that right here and right now, blessings are being transmitted. That love is here. That sparks of inspiration are germinating for each and every one of us. And so, dear ones, just take some more nice deep breaths in. And visualize, imagine, allow it to be so, that the angels are filling the space that you are in with soft pink light that is filled with love that has been calibrated just for you. This light brings with it healing and soothing, calming frequencies for you. And the angels know all that is transpiring in your life right now. They are aware of what you are experiencing, and they know the depth of your heart. So they meet you here with profound compassion, with deep understanding and love, that every part of you, every molecule of you is precious, that nothing you have ever done nor will ever do will disappoint your angels. They recognize how challenging the human experience is. It is not expected that any of us live perfect lives. We are here as students of life, We travel through lightness and we travel through the shadow. We have moments of deep faith and we have expanses of the dark night when we forget who we are. All of it is the human journey. But right now, in this moment, the angels are amplifying the field of love that is here for you. And this field of love is always here for you. It never departs. It's only that we forget that it's there. So in this moment, we invite you to breathe deeply, opening to the love of God and the love of the angels, knowing that you are precious in this universe, just as you are, that you are the breath of God incarnated as you, that you are filled with gifts and abilities, that you are a bringer of light. And I would imagine if you found your way to this podcast, that you are someone who experiences life through your heart, that you are one who feels deeply. You know, not everybody does. But if you are one who also feels deeply, because that is how I experience the world, then we send you extra waves of love. It is a lot to experience the world through our hearts, through our emotional body. But the blessing is, it allows us to develop deep empathy, understanding, and compassion for others. It's been my experience that it also makes us kinder. And I think kindness is one of the great blessings of this incarnation, that we get to bring kindness to each other and that we get to experience kindness as well. So in this moment, our invitation to you is to blossom open to deep kindness towards yourself. So, my friend, if there is anywhere within your consciousness where you are judging yourself, where your inner critic is doing the cha-cha-cha, where you are feeling less than or unworthy, this is the invitation for you to allow kindness to flow through towards yourself. Allow the angels to help clear these lines of energy for you. You are a divine being having a human experience. And sometimes we have profoundly, deeply human experiences and we forget our divinity. But your divinity is always with you. You are perfectly imperfect. You are deeply human and profoundly divine. And all of the magic in the universe is tucked within you. And the world is better because you are here. So take a nice deep breath in, allowing yourself to be bathed in the love and the gratitude and the joy the angels share with you now. Because your angels know who you really are. They get you. They're team you. and they are shining the light upon you now. And so just breathe, and you can ask your angels to draw even closer to you. You can say, angels, hey angels. You can be very informal with them. Hey angels, please bring your energy closer so I can feel you now. And I feel like I want to share a little bit of a story with you about the angels drawing closer. Wes and I, my husband and I, we used to go to metaphysical fairs. We would be vendors there, and we would do readings and give talks. And almost always there was a vendor there who took aura photos. They were these special cameras, and you would just sit in front of this backdrop, and it would take a picture of your aura. And then the colors of your aura, they would be able to interpret things about you. I don't really know how these things worked. I just thought they were super cool. And so one time we were at a fair, and it was kind of slow. And I said to Wes, I said, what would be so cool if we took 3 pictures. The first picture would just be me, Laurel. And in the second picture, I'm going to ask Josephus and the Wisdom Council to pull their energy into me like I'm channeling, to blend their energy with mine. And then the third one is I would have them move their energy back, because my sense is the aura photos will show how my aura changes in that process. So we thought this was a really cool idea, and we went over to the aura photographer, who was all game, and we paid for it too, but I'm just saying they were all for it. And so we took the first picture. And then for the second picture, I said, just give me a moment. And I asked Josephus and the Wisdom Council to bring their energy closer. And they were so delighted. And they just gave me this vision. I normally don't have a visual of them, but in that moment, I had this visual of them all bringing their energy towards me and putting their arms around me like we were all gathering in this photo. And they were excited. They said, we've never had our picture taken before. And then they all said, cheese. And the person took the picture. It was this moment of pure joy and delight. Like their delight just came flowing through. They were so delighted, and they all said cheese together. They said they never had a chance to do that before. And so I was just laughing, and I told everybody what had happened, and we all were laughing. And then they pulled their energy back, and they took the third aura photo. And what was fascinating is each of the photos was different. You could see my aura shifting with that process. I have the pictures tucked away somewhere, but I am a keeper of things. And so the challenge is I never quite know where my things are because I have many, many photos and talismans of goodness. But if I find them, I will definitely post them to my Facebook page. But just imagine in this moment, inviting your angels forward and how excited they are at this opportunity to be with you. They are so delighted to be with you. There is such love here for you, and they celebrate you. They are here with you. Imagine your team saying cheese with you. The next time you take a selfie, maybe you'll get some cool orbs in the photo. I haven't tried that before, but maybe we could do an experiment and see if orbs appear when we ask the angels to join us in our photos. And so I bring to you this sweet energy to help uplift you, to help you remember that you are loved so dearly, that you are magical and wonderful. And I am so grateful to be sharing this time with you. So take another deep breath in, just allowing your body to relax, that you have done enough for this day. And you have permission to drift off into the beautiful mystery of sleep. So you rest, and while you rest, your angels will be with you. And I'm going to read to you and tell you some stories. So for this episode, I thought we would go into the Wayback Machine because I found an old issue of Good Housekeeping in Google Books. Google Books is fascinating. If any of you like old magazines and newspapers, you can go into Google Books and adjust the dates that you want it to retrieve information for. And then so much material has been scanned in that you can read and download. So I'm going to read from this issue of Good Housekeeping from January 1908. And this is an article about Pasadena, California. I don't know if you've ever been to Pasadena. It is a beautiful city. It is northeast of Los Angeles. I didn't spend a lot of time in Pasadena when I lived in LA because of traffic. Traffic is really intense in Los Angeles, and to get to Pasadena, I would have to drive across a few different freeways, and there would always be traffic. And so there wasn't anything so compelling about Pasadena that I really wanted to spend time in traffic. But there are a few things about Pasadena that I do remember. The first is probably one we all relate to, which is the Rose Bowl parade on New Year's Day. I grew up watching it, and it is one of the things that made me want to move to LA, because in January I was bundled up in snow gear in Chicago, and the people at the Rose Bowl parade didn't seem as cold. So I imprinted early on with the climate of Los Angeles, and I suppose Pasadena, because of the Rose Parade, the Rose Bowl Parade, I guess it's called. And I did spend time in Pasadena in a few ways when I lived there. Near Pasadena in San Marino is the Huntington Library and Gardens, which is incredible. If you're ever in LA and you have time to go there, it is not to be missed. It is this massive estate that was curated by Henry Huntington, who was a real estate magnate back in the day. And it has this extraordinary library where there are many rare books and manuscripts. They have museums with paintings and furniture, and then different gardens. There's a Japanese garden, a lily pad garden, a rose garden, and huge expanses of lawns, and you walk all over the place, and they have a tea room, which is so delicious. So if you ever are in LA as a tourist and you're looking for something beautiful to do, I highly recommend a visit to the Huntington Library and Gardens. It's wonderful. So I thought I would read to you what it was like in Pasadena in 1908 through the lens of Good Housekeeping. So, the headline says Model Residence Towns. And they were doing a series about different towns that were model residences. And I think in a few months they do Boulder, Colorado. But I thought I would read to you first about Pasadena. So it says, the cities and towns in this series are chosen from among those which present their claims in our model town inquiry. The most perfect community in the world will not be included unless it speaks up, nor will any consideration but merit win a place in this series. The editor. Pasadena is the city where all of the many advantages of Southern California seem to be united and emphasized. The climate, California's greatest asset, here reaches a perfection of which it seems, to Pasadena people at least, to fall just short elsewhere. Such things as the wonderful climate and fine houses and beautiful gardens should be enough to make this a city among cities, and they do well enough to attract people to Pasadena in the first place. But they alone are not what is making a model city. There are other qualities which are less superficial and wear better. The first of them is cleanliness. Pasadena is a clean city, not only physically, but mentally and morally. There has not been a saloon in Pasadena in 20 years. An intoxicated man on the street is so unusual a spectacle that people speak of it. Women are not afraid to be on the street alone, night or day. No one ever sees a gang of young hoodlums loitering around street corners, and no mother ever needs to worry for fear her son will join such a gang. There is no questionable resort of any kind in the city today. According to Robert J. Burdett, who lives in Pasadena and ought to know, the citizens are, quote, people who use the day for labor and night for rest, people who love not necessarily the simple life, but the normal life, end quote. There are plenty of healthy, human, red-blooded individuals in the community who would fight with pleasure at the suggestion that the town is overly virtuous. For instance, saloons are not barred out on the temperance basis at all. The people got rid of them because they found they didn't pay. They failed to bring in enough revenue to pay for the additional police protection that is required on their account. They are kept out now because everyone is so well satisfied with the plan. I wonder how true that was. I don't know. That's an interesting way to look at things. Okay, we'll keep going. In the administration of public affairs, there is reason to believe that every dollar of public money has brought a dollar's worth for the people who paid it. The Reverend Robert J. Burdett, to whom reference was just made, they call him Bob Burdett in Pasadena, is one man who accepted public office and transacts public affairs. The people would like to get all such officials as he, and they do come as close to it as possible. During the Reverend Burdett's term as city commissioner, the most serious charge that was ever brought against him was that he had repeated absent-mindedly a story he related at the session a week before. The mental cleanliness of the city is manifested chiefly in the sort of amusements the people indulge in, the books they read, the plays they attend, and the subjects they talk about when they meet on the streetcars and in other public places. The newspapers reflect it. There are two of them, good dailies both, and neither of them belongs to the yellow school. News is handled conservatively. The reports of the public librarian, Miss Nellie M. Russ, shows that the demands for standard works far outnumber those for late fiction. There is a high musical appreciation in the community, and consequently a great many excellent musicians of more than local fame. Chamber concerts of real merit are given during the winter at the Shakespeare's Clubhouse, the home of the leading women's club. In the matter of music, the culture of Pasadena is invariably emphasized whenever there is a severely classical concert given in Los Angeles. Often these affairs turn out to be excursions from Pasadena. Besides the musicians and the literary people, there is a considerable colony of artists who have their studios grouped in one section of the city. Like the climate, architecture is to be found at its best in Pasadena. It is the art that's spelled without a capital A, the genuine kind, that produces pleasing structures, whether they cost $50 or $1 million, the minimum and maximum prices that have been paid for homes in Pasadena, by the way. Because of this pleasing architecture and its setting of satisfying gardens, created by people who become artistic by infection from their neighbors if they are not so naturally, Pasadena in late years has become and will continue to be a prolific field for material for magazines that aim to help people to improve their homes and their home surroundings. There is a certain freshness about Pasadena's street that appeals strongly to newcomers. It gives one the impression of having arrived in town just after a vigorous house cleaning or after a cleansing shower. Pasadena is made up of people who keep alive the civic pride in a beautiful city by encouraging one another to do things that improve the appearance of the homes and their surroundings. The streets are wide, with broad sidewalks. All of the business streets and most of the residence streets are paved. Those streets that are not paved have been treated with oil, which, when rolled into the natural soil, produces a tough covering, elastic as rubber, soft and smooth as velvet, and shedding water perfectly. Because of the pavements and these oiled streets, there is little dust to annoy good housekeepers. Everywhere, the thoroughfares have been planted with trees. The graceful pepper, a native of China, with its bright green sprays of delicate leaves and its hanging clusters of scarlet berries, seems to have been used more than any other. Many of these trees were planted a quarter of a century ago, and they now have massive trunks and wide-spreading branches. The pepper in shape and general appearance resembles the weeping willow, but it is more rugged in its outline and more picturesque. Marengo Avenue has what is said to be the most beautiful pepper drive in California. The camphor tree, which does not produce commercial gum in this climate, is a prime favorite because of its fresh green leaves and its well-kept appearance. It is a good sidewalk tree and always has the look of having just been rained on. Life is more simple here by far than in the East. The struggle for existence is not so much of a struggle. The necessities of life are fewer, and consequently the cost is less. It is the proud boast of Pasadena that there is not a poor person in the city limits. It is as much due to the fact that life is easy as it is to the benevolence of the people, although they are charitable when they get a chance to be. First, the home. All other things being equal, a vacant lot in Pasadena costs more than in eastern cities of the same size, but the explanation is that the city is young, it is spreading out. Real estate can always be sold without an effort. The difference that one pays for a lot is more than covered by what may be saved on the construction of the house. In a country where the thermometer very rarely ventures near the freezing point, where the sun shines nearly every day of the year, and where it is sometimes uncomfortably hot at midday in the heart of winter, there is little necessity for lining houses to keep out the cold. It is possible to build a 4-room California house for as little as $225. This includes nothing but the mere shell, but a very comfortable, creditable-looking house of 4 or 5 rooms, fit for any family it is large enough to accommodate, can be built inside of $1,200. Easterners would be surprised to know the type of people who are living in tent houses in Pasadena today and find them plenty good enough. A tent house is made of canvas stretched over a wood frame. The canvas is varnished and painted. The cost of such a structure ranges from $50 up, depending on the size and how elaborate it is. It is cheaper, not only in the end but in the beginning, to buy or build a home than to rent. A widow with 3 children came from the East and paid $25 the first month for a 5-room bungalow. A real estate agent persuaded her to make a cash payment of $250 on a $1,500 house of 5 rooms. She would then to pay $5 a month, covering interest and principal, which was not a rare sort of contract in Pasadena. 14 months later, she turned over her contract to another person on a basis of $1,800 for the house. She received her $300 profit in cash, and also the original $250 and all her other payments, with only the interest deducted. Taxes are low, and so is insurance because of an efficient, adequate fire department. And I thought what I would do is I'm going to travel over to the World Wide Web and give you a sense of what these numbers are in today's dollars. Okay, so our widow who purchased the house for $1,500, that is the equivalent of $48,000 in today's currency, which is still a bargain. I also pulled up the Los Angeles Times from 1908, and it looks like there are homes for sale somewhere around $10,000. And a $10,000 house is the equivalent of $322,000 in today's currency. So that gives you a sense on how much things cost back then. Another considerable saving is for fuel. There should be no coal bills in Pasadena. Sometimes it is possible to get through an entire winter without fuel, but there are a few crisp mornings and chilly evenings during the season when a few sticks of wood in the grate are worth more than they cost. On the whole, fuel bills, outside of gas for cooking at 80 cents a 1,000 feet, are so small that they are not worth taking into consideration. The possibility of getting fresh fruit and vegetables all the year round, and always at summer prices, make an appreciable difference in the cost of living. Furthermore, by offering a greater variety for the table, it almost eliminates the problem of what to have for dinner. There is always something tempting in the market. About 1 week usually intervenes each year, for instance, between the end of one strawberry season and the beginning of the next. Pasadena lies on the edge of an orange belt that extends 100 miles up the San Gabriel Valley. About all oranges are worth during a season is the cost of handling them. During the winter, hucksters go about selling them from wagons by the bucketful. A bucket should hold from 10 to 25 depending on the size of the oranges, that is. If the man charges more than 10 cents for a bucketful, he's a bandit. As a rule, vegetables are in the market the year round. Fruits come earlier and stay later here than in the East. Loquats, apricots, and nectarines, cherries, plums, and fresh prunes, all the berries, including the hybrid loganberry, fresh figs, and then the grapes and the melons. It might surprise Eastern housekeepers to learn that the price of watermelons and cantaloupes had not advanced for the Thanksgiving market this year, and that green corn was still on the market November 1st. Staple groceries sell for the same price in Pasadena as in Pueblo, Colorado, Peoria, Illinois, or Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Butter and eggs soar in price in the winter just as they do in the East, but they come down earlier in the spring. The climate, everyone agrees, is the best in the world for raising babies because they cannot fail to be strong and healthy. Dr. William A. Edwards, who has written several standard works on the diseases of infants, says there is no better climate anywhere for babies, and that if the supply of milk were what it should be, he can hardly imagine what babies here could be ill or die of. In Pasadena, there is not even a milk problem any longer. The first certified dairy to be established on the Pacific Coast is to open near Pasadena the first of the year. Backed by ample capital and in the hands of a wealthy retired businessman of extensive experience in big affairs, who is determined to make it the model dairy of the world, it promises to supply the babies of Pasadena with absolutely pure and wholesome milk. Pasadena was the pioneer city in the West to require the tuberculin test to be made on all cows, contributing to the city's milk supply. So far as available records show, it is the only city in California that requires this test. The tuberculin test is the only accurate method of determining whether cows are absolutely free from tuberculosis. The ordinance making the administration of this test compulsory was passed at the insistence of Dr. Stanley Black, who is now health officer. It requires the city veterinarian to make the test without charge and report results. Immediately back of Pasadena are the Sierra Madre Mountains, rising sharply to a height of more than 6,000 feet. The elevation of Pasadena is about 1,000 feet. An inclined railroad ascends Mount Low from Rubio Canyon, a beautiful gorge filled with the music of waterfalls, which is reached by a 15-minute car ride from Pasadena. Halfway up the Mount Low Trail at Echo Mountain is a stellar observatory and the famous Mount Low Searchlight, which is one of the largest ever built. On a clear, dark night, its beam can be seen 100 miles out to sea. In the same range, some 10 or 12 miles from Pasadena, is Mount Wilson, higher and more difficult of an ascent than Mount Low, and the site of the famous Mount Wilson Solar Observatory. It is a streetcar ride of only a little more than an hour to any of the dozen beaches. It is a peculiar fact that a large proportion of the tourists are not tourists at all, but 6 months residents, for they have been coming here regularly for many years. In many cases, they have their own winter homes, some of them small, modest cottages, others magnificent palaces in South Orange Grove Boulevard, which is known locally as the Mile of Millionaires. For the tourists proper, there are all sorts of hotels. The 4 big ones are the Green, which covers 2 entire city blocks and cost $1.5 million, the Raymond and the Wentworth on the bluffs overlooking the San Gabriel Valley, where it costs a king's ransom to be a guest, and the Maryland, with its striking entrance, its unusual courtyard, its ivy-covered white walls, and its picturesque pergolas. During the winter months especially, the streets of Pasadena present a gay appearance. Multimillionaires from the East bring their families and the armies of servants, their big automobiles, their blooded horses, and their fancy turnouts, and take the town by storm. On the first day of each year, the winter season reaches its height. This is the day for holding the annual carnival, the Tournament of Roses. This year's will be the 17th annual tournament. For weeks before the last day of the year, rose bushes are carefully nursed and coaxed so that they will burst forth in the best blooms of the year the day before the tournament. On New Year's Day, the business streets are a mass of flowers. There is a long pageant consisting of flower-covered floats which pass through the streets at noon. headed by the queen of the tournament with her ladies in waiting, her heralds, her pages, and her outriders. The procession ends at Tournament Park, where the queen and the populace witness the annual chariot race. These are not the kind that come last on the program at the circus. They are the real Roman races run in earnest on a track built for them. The city owns the chariots, and the horses are bred, raised, and trained for the chariot races and nothing else. There is no grandstanding. The honor of winning the annual race is too great not to be tried for. The prize is a laurel wreath, with which the queen crowns the victor. Being 9 miles distant from Los Angeles, Pasadena is far enough away to escape the disadvantages of a big town. Being only 9 miles away, it is close enough so that its citizens may have all the advantages of a big city. The two places are connected by a suburban streetcar service, which is said to be unexcelled anywhere in the world. Many of the inhabitants of Pasadena have their offices and all their business interests in the larger city, but although a considerable proportion of the population of Pasadena is made up of the better class of Los Angeles business and professional men and their families, it must not be supposed that Pasadena is nothing more than a suburb of Los Angeles. It is a wide-awake, bustling, active little city all by itself. And if it were situated a little further away from Los Angeles, where it would not suffer so much by comparison commercially, it would be more widely known as an important city of the Pacific Coast in a business way. Pasadena has a high school that cost $100,000, 12 grammar schools, and 7 kindergartens. The schools are overcrowded just now, but only because the city is growing too rapidly for the school authorities to keep up. New schools are to be erected in 1908. Besides the public schools, there are the Throop Polytechnic Institute, a model of its kind, the Classical School for Boys and the Classical School for Girls, and many other private schools. There is a $50,000 public library with 30,000 volumes supported entirely by the city. A site has been donated and $1 million endowment will soon be forthcoming for a women's college, which it is planned to make the Vassar of the West. There are 17 clubs, including the Shakespeare Club, one of the largest and most influential women's clubs in the West. This organization has just erected and paid for a $15,000 clubhouse with its own private theater. The city owns a sewer farm of 470 acres, which furnishes a satisfactory solution of the drainage problem and brought in besides a profit of $12,000 last year. The average winter temperature based on observations covering a long term of years is 56 degrees. The spring temperature is 61. The summer temperature is 67 and the autumn temperature is 62. A model boulevard, which is to be copied in other parts of the country, has just been built between Pasadena and Los Angeles, and the funds were raised by public subscription. Pasadena has the best supply of the purest mountain water of any city in Southern California. It is now controlled by private companies, but final arrangements have recently been made, approved by a vote of the people, whereby the city is to take over the companies and supply water to the citizens at cost. At a preliminary cost of $125,000, the city has established a municipal electric lighting plant and has been furnishing current for street lights for 2 months at a savings to the taxpayers. The plant has been so successful that it will now be enlarged and power will be sold to the citizens for a trifle more than actual cost. The plant was paid for out of the tax levy. Funds were recently raised by subscription, and a whole square block of the vacant property was purchased 5 blocks from the center of the city. On this, a $50,000 convention hall and casino is to be erected. It will be operated solely for the amusement of the citizens and their guests. Entertainments of all kinds will be given under the auspices of the city. Later, a municipal band is to be formed to give daily concerts. And that brings us to the end of the article about Pasadena. It's so interesting to hear about Pasadena's early days of development back then. You know, again, as I've shared before, the major cities here on the West Coast, here in the US, are relatively new compared to Europe, for instance, or the Middle East. You know, when you think that a city the size of Pasadena was really just getting developed, even though it had been founded, I don't know when, maybe 25 years prior to that. And then what it has become today. And just here's a little piece of trivia. I think I'm right about this, that the first ever Trader Joe's was founded in Pasadena. I think I'm right about that. Should I go Google it? Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Yes, indeed. The first Trader Joe's store was opened in 1967 by founder Joe Coulombe, Coulomba, in Pasadena, California. And I've actually shopped at that specific Trader Joe's. Not because I knew that it was the first one, but I was in Pasadena for something else. Maybe I had gone to the Huntington Gardens and wanted to hit Trader Joe's on the way home. Because, you know, you always have to hit Trader Joe's when you find one. But that's a story for another day. And the other thing that I didn't mention in my soliloquy about Pasadena is the Pasadena Rose Bowl Flea Market. I think it happens every weekend, and it is the flea market to end all flea markets. It's enormous. It can take half the day to wander through, and it has an incredible array of vendors and high-end vendors, and you never know what you're going to find there. If you're somebody who loves flea markets and thrifting, if you are going to be, again, in the Los Angeles area, the flea market is not to be missed. And I actually have a piece of furniture that I bought there. I'm sure as well as other things. I just don't remember what that is. And I would find it to be overwhelming to go to the flea market. I would get there super early for good parking because, you know, good parking is important to me. I don't know why you would know that, but there you go. You know that now. Good parking is essential for my adventures. And I must have walked 4 or 5 miles going around all of the different vendors. And I don't know about you, but I get overwhelmed and overloaded at those kind of flea markets because you have to look, or I have to look at everything, but then I can't see anything, which goes back to, if any of you listened to the episode about when Wes and I went antiquing for books and he could pick out the details and I was just overwhelmed. So that's another Pasadena memory, is the Rose Bowl Flea Market, which is really incredible if you're ever in Los Angeles. So the Rose Bowl Flea Market and the Huntington Gardens are 2 things to definitely experience if you go to LA. And so with that, my beautiful ones, perhaps you are already drifted off and having the sweetest of dreams. And if you are still awake and would like some more company, there are many other episodes of the podcast, so you can set up a playlist and I will keep you company through whatever you are experiencing right now. So the angels and I send you waves of love. And thank you for allowing us the blessing of spending this time with you. You are precious in this world, and I am deeply, deeply grateful for you. So you take care, and we'll talk again soon. I love you, and thank you so much.